30, 35 down the sidelines to the 40, makes a move to the 45, the 50, he's to the 40, he could go, he's to the 25, the 20, they dive at him, they miss him, he's in the end zone, touchdown!
Throws off his back foot, wide open man in the end zone, leaping grab, touchdown!
Launches the throw down toward the goal line, going up, ball tipped in the air, caught, touchdown!
Reverses his field, got a block from Pittman, going deep, got a man in the end zone, touchdown!
It's a man's game tonight now, you know that. Everybody watching tonight.
And now it's the Undefined Blitz with Chad and JC.
And welcome everybody once again to the Undefined Blitz right here on UndefinedRadio.com. Appreciate you guys and gals tuning in. It's time to talk football. Specifically, we're going to do a lot of SEC football talking today. A lot of SEC football talk. So get ready for it because the 2024 schedule is released. I know it's just 2023 season. But believe me, this is going to have a lot of impact on the SEC and football in general going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, the show, as always, from here on out, is brought to you by our friends over at Tobytown Media. Tobytown Media, elevate your listings. But as Storm was saying, yeah, the SEC 2024 schedule has dropped. And the reason that it's a big deal is, of course, because now we have the addition of Texas and Oklahoma into the mix. They're in there. So what the SEC has decided to do is to eliminate divisions. They are a 16-team super conference with no divisions. Top two records play each other for the SEC title. But what's also interesting in this is that that playoff field is expanding that season too.
Yes, it is.
It's going from 4 teams to 12 teams. So the question becomes, will the SEC get, way more teams in than anyone else, or will the SEC have beaten themselves down so badly over the course of that season that it honestly ends up benefiting the other teams from the other Power 5 conferences?
And look, I get it. There's going to be some people out there who are watching this and going, well, I don't see how that is because a lot of conferences have really good teams. When we show you the graphic here in just a little bit, when you actually see who all of these teams, Bama Powerhouse, Georgia Powerhouse included, are having to face in that one season alone during the regular season. You can't tell me any other conference in the NCAA has nearly the same kind of road to hoe. When we talk about strength of schedule, because everybody used to love talking about strength of schedule, there is no stronger strength of schedule than every team in the SEC and what they're going to have to endure.
Absolutely.
It's going to be rough.
I mean, it is overwhelming for almost every single team in that conference. I mean, even the team, whatever team that you want to determine has the easiest schedule in 2024 in the SEC, still has a tougher schedule than most.
That's right. And what's going to be funny is, are we going to see the end of the undefeated seasons coming out of the SEC?
Maybe not instantly, but I think it will trend that way. Yes.
I think it's possible. Like I said, we're going to really look at the schedule here in just a second.
But
what we're talking about here, it's rough.
But the difference is that with the expanded playoff field, it won't matter as much.
It won't, and you're absolutely right there. But I will be curious to see how they look upon the SEC when it comes to playoff play. We're talking about getting all those teams in there. Because you really they are going to have to look at how well these teams perform on a game-by-game basis against each other, cross rivals. Because you're going to have teams that are on top of the world, and then they turn around and get beat. All right, and then the team that got beat is going to turn around and just beat the place off of somebody else who you thought was unbeatable. Right. That's going to happen. Y'all can think it ain't, but it does. It bears out time after time. And when you got 16-team super conference against, look, the teams that you're going to have to feel sorry for are the Mizzous and the Vandy's of the world, because I see a lot of goose eggs in their future in the win column. They're finishing out their schedules with more than 2 or 3 wins, and I don't think they'll. All right, so let's put it this way: they have to schedule out of conference games, and they'll do that.
Yeah, 4 of them.
But within the SEC, itself, what do you think these win-to-loss ratios are going to look like for Vandy?
For Vandy, Just in conference play.
Just
In those 8 games. I'm going to say 1-7.
All right, Missy.
Yeah, that's probably the one.
So, but this is what I'm saying.
For Vanderbilt.
How does that both with you then? We talk about. We're going to pull up the schedule and we'll look at it more in depth.
Yeah. So Mizzou, they're going to be hard pressed to get a win. I think if they got a win, their one win would be against Vanderbilt. It's that brutal.
Exactly right. I mean, that's tough, dude. You look at that. Look at all of that.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching and looking at the screen right now, keep in mind these are just the conference games.
That's right.
These aren't factoring in the non-conference games. And look at Texas's schedule over there, right? So they've got home games against Mississippi State, Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky. That's rough.
Yep.
Then they've got the neutral site game against Oklahoma.
Yep.
Road games at A&M, which I'm so glad that rivalry's back.
Oh,
road game at Arkansas. I'm so glad that rivalry game is back. And road game at Vanderbilt. And then, not to mention, in their non-conference games, they've got a road game in Ann Arbor against Michigan.
That's right.
Absolutely rough schedule all the way through. Well, not all the way through. They got Vanderbilt.
But it's rough.
But it is a rough schedule.
And talking about Vandy, so they're playing Tennessee. That's a loss.
Absolutely.
Bama, that's a loss. South Carolina's going to be tough. Probably a loss. I mean, it's more than likely.
Probably. Spencer Rattler is back. I mean, the way that South Carolina ended last season, then if they can keep that kind of style of play going,
they'll be fine.
It'll be a much improved South Carolina team this year.
Yes. Then they got Texas, like you said. That's probably a loss. LSU, loss. Auburn, loss. Missouri, that's the one that they could win.
Maybe. If there's one to win, that's probably the one.
Kentucky, that's a loss.
That's a loss, yeah.
Then you look at Missouri. They got Arkansas.
Loss.
Auburn.
Loss.
Vandy.
Maybe.
That's a toss-up game.
That's a win,
right?
possibly.
Oklahoma.
Loss.
Alabama.
Loss.
A&M.
Loss. A&M played like trash last year. They're so talented. That's the crazy part. Like, what is going on with the Aggies? Because Jimbo Fisher has recruited well ever since he's been there.
He has.
Previous coaching staffs, Kevin Sumlin's teams, recruited well. They, for whatever reason, they're just not putting it together. I think last season was probably an aberration for the Aggies. I expect them to bounce back, especially since they know that they have to play Texas, a game that they didn't want.
Yep. No, they did not want that.
And they got 2 years to get ready for this season.
That's right.
Because they have to get through the 2023 schedule first, of course. But I look for A&M to be improved. So going back to Missouri, that's going to be a loss for Missouri when they go on the road to Kyle Field.
Yeah, that's just going to be tough. And then, of course, they finish up with State and South Carolina. Again, more tough games. And South Carolina, I mean, look at them. LSU.
Loss.
A&M.
Well, they're going to LSU. I'm sorry.
No, they got LSU.
I was looking at the wrong schedule. I apologize. So, they got the home games with LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, and Missouri.
That's right.
Which isn't too bad. LSU is going to be a loss. A&M, they could possibly win. Ole Miss, they could possibly win. Missouri, they probably will win.
Yeah. Kentucky.
Probably a loss.
Alabama.
Absolutely a loss.
Vanderbilt.
That'll be a win.
And Oklahoma.
And that'll be a loss.
Yeah. Now, let's go look at the schedule that a lot of you who are listening to this probably want to talk about. Ole Miss and State. We're going to look at Ole Miss and State.
Okay.
Our home State's football games, because this is going to get interesting. Ole Miss has State, of course.
At home.
But they've got Georgia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, LSU.
On the road at LSU.
On the road at LSU. On the road at Arkansas. On the road at Florida. And on the road at South Carolina.
Yeah, that's rough. It's a rough schedule, man.
So you remember last year we were talking going in, we were like, oh, yeah, we can Ole Miss doing it. We said, here's a stretch where they could lose out.
Yeah, and they did.
I mean, because it's easy when you're playing lower tier teams to say, all right, well, we can make ourselves look a lot better in the standings by crushing these teams. There's not a lot of that anymore.
No, because all these teams have to play. When you got 16 teams to schedule, you're gonna have to get some matchups that you otherwise normally wouldn't get.
That's right. You can escape from some of them.
And others you just absolutely cannot. But what I do love here, though, is that there's a lot of natural rivalries that have been preserved. If you look all throughout the schedule,
Yes.
right? So we still get Florida and Georgia down in Jacksonville.
Alabama, Auburn still.
Still getting that. Where was the other? We're still getting Alabama and LSU.
Yes.
We're still getting Alabama and Tennessee.
Yes.
So those are good rivalry games that got preserved. The fact that Oklahoma and Missouri will be playing, those old Big 12 days. Texas did not get Missouri, but
No.
Oklahoma did. But Texas gets the old Southwestern Conference
Yeah.
match up with Arkansas.
And Arkansas.
But getting A&M and Oklahoma, which we knew Oklahoma was going to happen because
That's right.
they've already renewed their contract with the Cotton Bowl for another 6 years.
Exactly.
So we knew that was going to happen.
That's too much money for them not to do that whole game.
But it would have been absolutely foolish not to have Texas and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you played, even if we have to start the series back up at Kyle Field down there with the Aggies. You've got to have that matchup. Ole Miss, of course, is keeping State. Ole Miss is keeping LSU. That's a big deal because I think there aren't many of these that are what they're considering as a protected rivalry game.
Like your state, you got main ones that you have to because you got the Iron Bowl and the Egg Bowl. You got the Red River Shootout, the Red River Rivalry, whatever the hell it's called now, that I hate so much. But you got games like that you have to maintain.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially because if you're going this bold and you got all these new things, just to help smooth it over with some of the fan base who's absolutely going to hate this,
I mean,
you have to keep some of these games.
They're keeping the rivalry game between Florida and LSU, which is huge.
Yep.
We're still getting Auburn and Georgia, which is a win. So I think for a first stab at this has been done as well as they possibly could have hoped for.
I mean, that was our thing we debated, right? But how are they going to do this to make this work?
Right.
We
were wondering if
conferences, divisions.
Yeah, we were wondering if they were going to do 2 divisions, if they were going to do 4-team pods. I didn't think that they would go this route in particular.
Well, I mean, I like it.
But yes, if you can make the schedules work, I love it. I'm here for
Absolutely. Because there is a ton of great football sitting on this screen right now. You look at these games, there's not going to be many weekends in the SEC where I don't think there's going to be one.
There won't be a single weekend that season where there's not an important SEC game being played.
That's right. We're going to say, oh, wow, this is meaningful. Because in the SEC, we're not talking about the rest of college football, but in the SEC, every single conference game is going to be important. Every last one of them.
But I think you can say that about college football in general. Everyone matters.
Well, they do, but I think as far as the SEC goes, especially now with only the Super Conference itself, and there's no glossing over weak divisions anymore.
Right. You can't have a very fragile SEC East where Georgia's running roughshod over everybody, and then a tough SEC West where Alabama always manages to sneak it out.
I mean, look at Georgia's schedule. They got Florida.
Which should be a win for Georgia.
Auburn, State, Tennessee, Bama, Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Texas. Now, could they win all these games?
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, are they going to do it with relative ease and escaping all just, I'm going to run roughshod? No. That's because before they got to do that because their division was so weak. This is not weak. You're going to get beat up doing this. And
That's
all these teams
not weak, but I think as far as Georgia's concerned, that's a pretty favorable schedule.
Oh, it's not bad. I'm not saying that.
The roughest part of that is the Alabama game, specifically because they have to go to Tuscaloosa to play that game.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing standing in their way. Alabama, on the other hand, home games against Auburn, the aforementioned Georgia game, Missouri, South Carolina. But then their road stretch is kind of rough. They go to LSU.
Yeah.
They go to Norman. They go to Knoxville. And then, of course, they go to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. But Alabama's schedule is still rougher than Georgia's.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, even with all this going on. I mean, if I'm looking at just Georgia's conference schedule, I'm thinking 7-1, with the one being Alabama.
I can see that.
But if I'm looking at Alabama's, I can see 7-1 or 6-2.
Yeah. And again, these games are going to be rough and tough because now you don't have just one or two really rough games during the season. You got a handful of them.
Absolutely.
And that to me is the difference. It's not so much that all these games winnable by those two powerhouses. They are, but now you don't have a lot of the other fluff games that you can say, okay, we can take it easy. We're running roughshod. They're going to get punched in the mouth almost every week. Somebody's coming after these teams.
Yeah, and we're getting, of course, now with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, that's an additional neutral site game for the SEC, which they already had a couple. Of course, Florida and Georgia is always a neutral site game in Jacksonville, which is basically a home game for Florida. A&M and Arkansas have been playing a neutral site game in Arlington over at Jerry World, which is basically served as a de facto home game for A&M, which is kind of weird because the guy that owns that building is a Razorback.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I think all the incentive in the world for eyes to be on the SEC network and ESPN and their family of channels is going through the roof with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, because it has created a whirlwind of the schedule, which is going to be tough for any conference to beat. Like, if the SEC doesn't thoroughly dominate the ratings in 2024, I am going to be shocked.
I don't know. There's no way they can. I mean, the football alone, and this season is the farewell tour for college football as we knew it.
Correct.
Because it changes after the season.
Yeah. So
epically changes. We've seen little bitty changes happening, but after 2024 is a great big change.
Right. The Big 12 is going to be a 14-team conference this year.
Yep.
Because they're getting the addition of Cincinnati and USF. I'm trying to think who else. BYU and Houston are all coming into the Big 12 this year. With Texas and Oklahoma still being there this season. But UCLA and USC are going to the Big 10. The college football playoffs expanding from 4 teams to 12 teams.
Yep.
I mean, this is going to be the end of an era of college football. And then not to mention, in 2024, on top of conference expansion and conference realignment, you got the new college football video game that's coming out, which I think this is something that people sleep on about the potential of this football game, video game that is that could help recruiting in a lot of ways, because kids they have direct access to see uniform combos. They kind of see what playing is like in these conferences as far as a difficulty level. And so maybe that helps bolster the SEC's their roster depth, which we know doesn't really need much assistance.
No.
But I think it's going to end up helping out that conference as a whole.
I'm really curious as to what it's really going to do for recruiting. Just what we see with this game, with how the SEC is going to be from now on. Like before, I think it's a double-edged sword. Because before, you could go and say, Georgia's powerhouse,
Alabama's powerhouse, LSU.
I'm going to do that. So I got some good ones. We're going to win a bunch of games. I can get shown a spotlight. We're up some scores. You look at these things now. That's a different outlook.
And look, and here's the question too: is this just a one-off schedule?
Yeah,
right here.
And we don't know if this is going to be the permanent thing.
Yeah, so I mean, this could be permanent going forward, where they have no divisions and it's just the top 2 teams advance to play for the conference title, or will they eventually break it off into 2 divisions or 4 pods, or however they want to arrange that whole situation?
Man, that's what's going to be fun in this season, because every game that the SEC plays, this is going to be talked about.
Ultimately, what I would like is for every team in the SEC to have a home and away series with every other team in the SEC over the course of 4 years.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Where when you get a recruiting class in, that recruiting class knows that they're going to play at all 16
if they
SEC
stay
stadiums.
At that school their whole 4 years, they get to play in every state.
Absolutely.
I agree. Which is a cool experience anyway.
Right. You know, I mean, because traditionally, if you were, let's say at Georgia, you knew you were going to play all the East teams, and then, you know, you would play the other SEC West teams once every 7 years, really, give or take.
You weren't really sure if you was going to play one or not.
Yeah, and think about it this way, too, from a recruiting standpoint. If you know that you're going to play at every SEC stadium, you know you're going to have a home series against every team, and you're going to have a road series against every team. You might as well just find whatever team that you really like and latch on to them.
And look, with the NIL deals too on top of this.
Which the NIL money is about to be extremely stupid in that season.
It's about to get nuts.
Which, you know, of course, they're trying to regulate that, and good luck.
Because you should have done that from the start.
Absolutely. Before they even greenlit NIL, they should have had some structure at the national level. But I also think if you have structure on it, then at what point is it no longer name, image, and likeness, and it's just a salary?
That's right.
That you're getting.
So it's a catch-22. I don't look. If people are willing to pay these kids the money to go do that for the name, image, and likeness, then let them pay the kids for the name, and I get both sides of that argument, but there's really no good way because it's kind of like I keep going back to USC and Reggie Bush and all the stuff that happens there, right? So he gets his Heisman Trophy taken away, he gets all this stuff, you know, especially with some guy. They grow up poor in poverty, you get college, and must be a tall statue. When you grow up poor in poverty, that's a hard thing to turn down.
Right.
Now you can help your family. You can do all these things. Now you've got a nice car. You're a young kid still. You're not turning that down. And now the rest of the team has to suffer for that because of one person's decision.
Right.
And the school suffers for that. And that's usually not the actual school doing it. It's a booster thing because you got your boosters who love their alma mater. I want my alma mater to be the best because when we tailgate, we're going to have these parties. I got all my colors and stuff.
But think back to USC at that time. It was bonkers.
It was.
I mean, Snoop Dogg's at all the games.
Yep.
Will Ferrell's at the games. There were celebrities left and right everywhere. You could name, like, think about it. We're in the heart of SEC country, right?
Yep.
Back in 2003, 4, 5, that SEC or USC run there, I could have probably told you 90% of the starting offensive and defensive players for USC at that time.
Right.
Just because they were so dominating and they demanded so much attention that they were constantly on, you know, ESPN and all the other sports networks, and you got real familiar with those names.
Yes, you did. And that's what I mean. So now the NIL deal and how that works, I just think it's a tragedy that there's no way you can go back from it.
Should they reinstate Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy now that NIL's a thing?
Well, I think here's my thing about it. Because you got people like, well, back when he did it, it was the wrong thing to do. And I get that. But you know what? I didn't care for it then either. The whole, because you know how many years I've always gone off on the subject where I think the NCAA.
Well, and also, you know, they pulled Reggie Bush's Heisman after he was in the NFL, like for a few years.
And then punished the school. After he's gone, he don't get punished.
Yeah, he didn't get punished at all.
No. We'll have to get the trophy back?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't do the commercial?
Okay.
Okay. I can keep my millions of dollars and still play pro football and do my thing?
But here's the thing. The NCAA might try to act like Reggie Bush didn't win the Heisman. Fact is, all of us that were alive and watching college football at that point, we remember it.
That's right.
You know who else haven't forgotten? YouTube. You can get on YouTube right now and you can watch a litany of videos of Reggie Bush absolutely embarrassing folks.
Yeah, but that goes back to the whole thing with the NCAA was always that the NCAA wants their money. They don't want to share their monies. And so this is how we get to the NIL. Because everybody's been screaming that. Well, why don't you want the kids to get? You're making a fortune off of them. He gets a new car. Are you upset about it?
Right. Well, you know, think back to, Ole Miss about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
About this time, 10 years ago.
That's right.
Ole Miss is flying high.
They are rolling.
They're
Finally.
probably at the most sustainable peak of their success that they have had since the 1960s when
That's
they
right.
won a couple national titles. And Ole Miss ended up having to serve some postseason bans.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up having to forfeit a bunch of games retroactively.
Yep.
Should all that be reinstated now that NIL is officially a thing?
Well, that's what I mean.
I feel like
there's no
I feel
reason
like
not to.
you
Working
can't.
hurting.
Right. I mean, you're not making me forget that Ole Miss beat Alabama.
No,
I
nobody's
won't.
forgetting that.
I won't forget that.
You can try to
You
take it out and
you
you
can-
all you want.
You can
We all know
scrub
that.
it from the record books, but I remember, and YouTube remembers. You can find those
And
games.
every Bama player and fan who lost that day remembers. Every Ole Miss fan who won that day, their staff, they remember.
Either one of them, the one in
Yeah.
Oxford or next year in Tuscaloosa, because Ole Miss beat them back-to-back years.
That's right. So
Didn't wipe
you
it
can't
from my
erase that.
mind.
No.
So-
But that's with a lot of these schools and a lot of these players who do that. And I've always hated for the kids who had to suffer when everybody else was gone. When the supposed perpetrators were gone, why are you punishing the rest of them?
Because that was the Laquan Treadwell, Robert Kimdichie, Laramie Tunsil,
Yeah.
like that class with all those guys. They're the ones that took the NIL money. I'm not saying those players specifically,
Yeah.
but that class
That's right.
is the one. They're the ones that took that money. So it really ultimately affected the AJ Brown, DK Metcalf class
Exactly.
because they're the one, Evan Ingram. They're the ones that got
suffered
punished for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And so the NIL's not going anywhere. I don't see how they regulate it. And if I was the guys who were when they were trying to regulate, I would fight tooth and nail against it. Just because, and I don't care what any football player says because we hear the talking heads all the time. It's easy when you're up there making all the money to say something about these other people. But you have to look at it and see what's happened throughout the years of the history of the NCAA and how they've handled these kids and what they've done. And the egregious oversight and just trash that they've gone to do for these kids just to show that we're the NCAA. What we say, kids?
Absolutely.
Papa's arrogance.
It is just it's nightmare fuel to the nth degree, right?
It is.
Because at what point are you you're yelling at people from the top of the mountain from your ivory towers? Hey, do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
So
Who would say that? It's all that.
now that NIL it's a thing.
Yes.
It's affecting college recruiting.
Mhm.
It's affecting the way that games are played, or if players even play in games. It's possibly going to affect a video game next
Yep.
year. And so, if now the NIL is a thing, why can't we just go back and look at all the punishments that have been doled out and just kind of do a reprieve?
Oh, I know. The NCAA will never go out and say, we were in error.
Well,
They will never admit to it.
no, they can say that when this happened,
They weren't.
we were in the right.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why they will never
They-
say that
they could
we
absolutely-
kind of overstepped and we shouldn't have got carried away.
But if they owned it, like they say, hey, when this happened, this was the rule.
Yep.
And so, when we punish them, they deserve to be punished
By the rules.
because
By the rules that we had set for.
they did wrong and they got caught
That's right.
and they got punished for it. However, the thing that they got punished for is no longer a violation. So what we're going to do is games that were forfeited, we're going to go ahead and we're going to restore the original record. Heisman trophies will get reinstated, or any kind of postseason award will get reinstated. The only thing that should not get reinstated is a national championship victory.
No, I don't even mind that, honestly.
I mean, because the players still went out there and earned it. I see what you're saying.
So I don't mind it because if we're going to do the other one, I think you have to do that because they still won.
Right.
They
Well,
still won.
If they did.
I mean, that's what I mean.
You think because the season that Reggie Bush got punished for was the
They
season
lost.
he won the Heisman and they
Yeah,
lost the national
that's
title
right.
game.
So we know that.
And who was second in that Heisman race was Vince Young.
Yep. Which
Uh,
I don't think he should be elevated to the Heisman because he's not one.
and he wasn't.
That's what I mean. So I and you could do that in all those ways. Again, the part that always irritated me the worst is the punishment to the school and the other kids who were there who had no hands.
Absolutely.
That's the part that I hated the most about any of it. I can get behind it if it's the rule, because I always say that if it's the rule, you know it's a rule, and you break the rule, that's on you.
Look, I'm with you.
However, not these other kids who are like, dude, I did everything right, but I'm still getting questioned what that dude did.
You know, there are people that have been taking out billboards for quite some time, telling the NCAA to do the right thing and give Reggie Bush his Heisman back.
Oh, yeah. Well, they should, again. He goes.
But we do have some other college football news, and we're going to stay in the SEC. So some big news coming out is that Ole Miss has flipped, reclassifying Florida Gators quarterback Austin Simmons.
Yep.
And this is, of course, credited to Tom Van Haren, ESPN staff writer. His story reads as, Ole Miss has continued to stock its quarterback room this offseason when quarterback Austin Simmons announced he was flipping his commitment from Florida to the Rebels. Simmons was the number 77 ranked prospect in the 2025 class, but said this past Saturday that he's reclassifying to the 2023 class to enroll at Ole Miss. And so what's kind of wild about this is Ole Miss didn't sign a high school quarterback in this class cycle for whatever reason. And while it's unusual to see a prospect reclassify back 2 classes, Simmons will be able to enroll this summer and will be able to compete with the other quarterbacks this fall. Of course, his decommitment from Florida obviously will impact the 2025 class, but the Gators will have time to fill that spot. The coaches lost a commitment from Jaden Rashada in the 2023 class, but they will have ESPN 300 quarterback DJ Lagway committed in 2024. Lagway is the number 14 recruit overall and a 5-star prospect in the 2024 cycle. So Florida will be fine. But this is definitely a huge boost to the Ole Miss quarterback room, which currently contains Oklahoma State transfer Spencer Sanders, LSU transfer Walker Howard, and they'll be competing with last year's starter Jackson Dart, who transferred in from USC as well. Yeah, Ole Miss has a really they have a strong quarterback class with no clear-cut elite arm in it.
That's right.
Right? Like,
we've kind of been spoiled.
In my opinion, if you look at those 3 quarterbacks they currently have, Spencer Sanders, Walker Howard, Jackson Dart, Spencer Sanders is the only one who's really proven much of anything.
Yeah.
And he did that in the Big 12 against inferior competition.
I mean, this is wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, Walker Howard, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him play. But Jackson Dart was erratic at best last year.
Yeah, I don't think we've been spoiled on this for a while with some quarterback plays. At least, good to very good quarterback plays. And now it's just inconsistent quarterback play. It's just mind.
And it kind of dates back to that era of Ole Miss football we were talking about with Bo Wallace. It kind of started there,
Yep.
Which when Bo Wallace was on, he was great.
Yes.
But when he was off, he was terrible.
That's right.
And then you fast forward to Chad Kelly. Chad Kelly was pretty damn solid his entire run. Of course, he ultimately ended up tearing up his knee while he was at Ole Miss, which really kind of derailed Ole Miss's momentum there. But then they got into a really weird situation with some guys, Shea Patterson.
Yeah.
But that led into the Jordan Teamu run, which led into the Matt Corral run.
Yeah.
So there's been some pretty decent quarterbacks, like you said, that have come through Ole Miss over the course of the last decade.
Yeah. It's been cool,
but now that
where are we at now?
And what's really strange is we come off the Matt Corral's last season, and Ole Miss got their first 10-win regular season in school history.
Yep.
Fast forward to the very next year, and they're 6-6.
That's right.
So it wasn't great.
No, it was not.
But segueing away from the SEC, Oregon State recruit Brandon Smith is facing attempted murder charge.
That's crazy.
So this story is according to Adam Rittenberg of ESPN. So Brandon Smith is a junior college running back who announced his commitment to Oregon State earlier this month. He has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Brandon Smith was a running back at Santa Barbara City College. He was one of 4 people arrested in an incident that took place on June 2nd, the same day he announced his commitment to Oregon State. The Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office said that Smith, 21, was arrested on June 7th. He is being held in jail on a $2 million bond. Oregon State, however, has reached out to ESPN and told them that Smith never signed with the team and he will not be part of the program. Smith is a Chicago native who rushed for 1,231 yards and 16 touchdowns last season at Santa Barbara City. Really good numbers. He took an official visit to Oregon State in late May and announced May 25 that he received a scholarship offer. Also had interest from Fresno State, Nevada, Hawaii, and other programs. Hours after Smith announced his commitment on social media, Santa Barbara County Sheriff's detectives responded to a report of a fight near a community pool. Upon arrival, they found a 20-year-old man seriously injured. All 4 suspects were arrested on June 7th on suspicion of attempted murder, robbery, and conspiracy. The sheriff's deputies believe the victim and the suspects all know each other.
Man, stupid.
They're talking about throwing away your
I
opportunities.
swear. There's so much of that, too.
Now, while Brandon Smith may be throwing away his opportunities, there's one school out west that's trying to forge an opportunity for themselves. And we're talking about the San Diego State Aztecs. They have told the Mountain West Conference that they are planning to leave the conference. They wrote a notice to the Mountain West that says they intend to resign from the Mountain West Conference. Of course, this article is credited to Pete Thamel. In the letter, the school asked the Mountain West for a 1-month extension given unforeseen delays involving other collegiate athletic conferences beyond our control. As of now, there does not appear to be an invitation to San Diego State from a Power 5 conference. So they are willing to leave a conference with no prospects.
Yep.
Go independent like Notre Dame, but they don't have the strength of a brand like Notre Dame.
I wonder what Genius said. You know, no one's really coming to us, but let's just up and do it anyway because we're San Diego State like that.
Well, and it brought some complications for San Diego State. So the withdrawal letter, which came from San Diego State President, I hope I don't butcher this name, Adela De La Torre, on Tuesday, brought complexities and prompted a tense back and forth between the league and the school. So SDSU subsequently informed the league that the letter was, quote unquote, not the official notice of resignation, according to sources. San Diego State would need to give a 1-year notice to withdraw next June. If it waits past June 30th, the exit fee it would owe the Mountain West Conference jumps from $16.5 million all the way up to $34 million.
That's not the end of the good news.
No, so San Diego State has been long linked to the Pac-12, which is in the midst of a protracted process of trying to land their own television contract. And while there's been no formal invitation for the school to join the league, the timeline for such a move has been linked to either the Pac-12's TV deal or the departure of a Pac-12 member, which we both know that UCLA and USC, they're going to the Big Ten.
That's right.
So San Diego State, as of right now, does not have an offer from the Pac-12, according to a source. But San Diego State is attempting to explore all options if the Pac-12 doesn't get a TV deal done by June 30th. So here's where it gets strange, too. So the school's also been part of the Big 12's realignment exploration.
Yeah.
And there have been conversations, but sources say neither side has been prioritized to this point. But if you want to get really weird and really contentious about it, the Mountain West responded to San Diego State's letter of resignation, informing the school in a letter on Wednesday that the conference had accepted the letter of withdrawal and that the consequences of the move have begun. Those include that De La Torre's seat on the Mountain West Board of Directors is being pulled, and that under league policies, its financial obligation tied to withdrawal will be withheld. So basically, San Diego State has to cough up $16.5 million to leave the conference, and they won't be seeing a single red conference-related cent.
There you go. It was so well thought out by them. I wonder what they thought was going to happen when they came up with this brainchild. I'm like, huh.
I don't know, but and look, who knows? They may very well get into the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 is going to need teams because
no doubt.
They're losing 2 of their 3 or 4 strongest brands.
And I'm sure there has been some behind-the-scenes conversation of this and that. You just don't up and pull a move like this unless there has been some verbiage going on.
Right. they have to be willing, really willing, to accept the financial ramifications of this.
Yes, which they had to know was coming.
That's the kicker right there. They had to know it was coming.
So,
And I think you only do that if you know that you're kind of on that cusp of landing in a Power 5,
that's right.
or landing in whatever other conference you're trying to get to.
Good job, fellas. Good job.
And then the other college football news we have before we start pivoting over to the NFL is about old number 21. Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. Colorado head coach Deion Sanders may need his left foot amputated.
Yep.
He
only had 2 toes amputated.
Yeah, so he's been having circulation issues in his left foot. They forced him to have 2 toes amputated in 2021. And Sanders is having a camera crew following him right now on what's called the pregame show. It's D with 2 E's. They filmed a meeting with his medical team at the University of Colorado where he's preparing for his first season as head football coach. And an 11-minute segment was released on YouTube where Sanders met with orthopedic surgeon Dr. Ken Hunt, vascular surgeons Dr. Donald Jacobs, and Dr. Max Wohler, I guess is how you pronounce this, and athletic trainer Lauren Escobar to discuss his daily pain levels and possible next steps. And Dr. Jacobs told Deion Sanders in this video, you just have to understand what the risks are. Things can cascade, and that you might not just lose another toe, but you can lose the foot. Of course, Deion Sanders, being Deion Sanders, replied, well, I know what the risks are. I only have 8 toes, so I'm pretty sure I understand.
Yeah.
You know?
I kind of got it figured out.
Sanders says that he has no feeling in the bottom of his left foot and said that if the procedure is recommended, he wants to get it done right away because once the season starts, he's going to be too busy. Man, that's wild that you think about the position that he played,
Yep.
the sports that he played,
With a thing.
how fast he was, and the fact that he could now just be left with 1 foot
Oh, yeah.
is kind of bonkers.
You know, remember all the turf toes he had, like, those who have
Yeah.
those a lot. I just wonder.
If they
Yeah.
played a part in it.
Well, I wonder if his foot condition played a part of his turf toe. With his feeling and stuff, I wonder if that underlying condition that's causing what's happening now.
Or could it be that the turf toe has piled up so much that it's caused this condition?
Well, and you wonder if it was, you have to believe it related some kind of way.
Yeah.
I would just feel like, because it didn't just, he just hit one turf toe. I mean, it's
Yeah.
happened several times.
I don't think that he went from being one of the premier athletes on the planet to like being a diabetic. Because I mean, this is something that you see diabetics deal with.
That's right.
You know, not making light of diabetes at all.
But you do see that.
But yeah,
and
it's a very
amputations are a thing.
common thing. But I think if he does get this foot amputated, which I hope is not the case, I think he'll be back week 1. Like he'll be on the sidelines. He'll have a prosthetic.
Yep.
He's not about to miss
Ready
a
to roll.
beat.
Nope. Not at all. All right, we're going to get some NFL talk again.
Well, before we do, I want to remind you guys that our show is brought to you by Tobytown Media. And they sent us a lovely little ad read, and here it is. Hey there, North Mississippi real estate agents. I've got some exciting news for you. If you're looking to take your listings to new heights and sell properties like never before, you need to check out Tobytown Media. They're the experts when it comes to elevating your real estate game. With Tobytown Media, you'll get access to high-quality photography, captivating videos, stunning drone shots, and immersive virtual tours. They'll make your listing shine and attract more buyers. Imagine the impact that professional media can have on your sales. But hold on a minute. There is more here. As a first-time client, you can try Tobytown Media for free. Just order their pro package online with promo code BLITZ. That's BLITZ, all capital letters, at checkout. That's right. It is absolutely free. Don't miss out on this exclusive offer. Visit their website at www.tobytownmedia.com to register and book an appointment today. Remember, it's all about standing out in the competitive real estate market. So take that next step and let Tobytown Media supercharge your success.
Speaking of standing out,
Yeah, the Lion.
Micah Parsons, I love it. That is awesome.
Nice little Funko Pop to add to the collection.
That's a cool one to have right there.
Absolutely.
That's a cool one to have right there. You might go my death by that.
So, of course, the big NFL news that's been talked about this entire past week is that DeAndre Hopkins got released by the Cardinals, and he has been making the rounds. He stopped in with the Tennessee Titans, spent an entire day with them, left with no contract in hand. Then he turned around and went to Foxborough to visit the Patriots and has indicated that he's in no rush to sign a contract. So Hopkins is 31, and he's considered waiting until closer to training camp in late July to make a move.
Oh, yeah.
But I think he also wants to see what contenders want it.
That's right. Where the need the most is, and where his best opportunity to win.
Because the Cardinals still owe him a lot of money.
This stage.
I think if he got the right contender, he would probably take less money
Oh, sure.
to have that legitimate shot at the Super Bowl. But on Instagram, Hopkins posted a picture of himself with Patriots outside linebacker Matthew Judon from inside New England's locker room. He included the words La Familia, which highlights how he connected with some of the team's veteran leaders during his visit. Now, of course, this visit started on Thursday morning, went well into the afternoon, and adding Hopkins appeared intrigued by the possibility of playing for New England and Coach Bill Belichick. I just don't see
That's not happening.
No.
That's not happening.
like
I get why you would used to go there.
well, D-Hop would be absolutely the number one wide receiver there.
Oh, no question.
Their number two would be Juju Smith-Schuster,
Sure.
which would benefit Juju.
Absolutely.
But I don't think that from a coaching standpoint, and I don't mean Belichick, I mean from an OC DC standpoint, I don't know what Mac Jones is going to be this year because he really regressed last year. He dealt with a number of injuries. They couldn't protect him. Of course, Mac Jones is a fan of DeAndre Hopkins, and he spoke glowingly about D-Hop. I just don't know if D-Hop to the Patriots or the Titans makes a lot of sense for old Nuke Hopkins there.
I don't think he's going to. Again, it's going to come down to trying to get onto a contender. He wants to win the championship.
Do you think he would take substantially less? Because I don't know what their salary cap situation is,
Yeah.
but do you think he would take significantly less money to go play for the Chiefs?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if he wants a ring, and he's saying, you know what, I can take a 1-year deal.
And he doesn't have to be the number one in Kansas City because
Nope.
Travis Kelce is the number one.
That's right. So I could go and get me a ring, and that's not a outrageous statement.
No,
That's a very true statement.
absolutely viable. Or what if he went to the Eagles?
Another.
What if he's a big
Again.
Jalen Hurts fan? He and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
Yep.
Plus, Dallas Goedert's a pretty solid tight end too. So that would be
To me, the
nightmare
Eagles would be
fuel.
unstoppable.
Absolutely. As
This
long
would
as
be
Hopkins
unstoppable.
can stay healthy.
Yep.
And
That's the key.
the wild thing is he's dealt with injuries and suspensions over the last 3 years, but before that, I don't think he ever missed a game in his NFL career.
No, it would be. I mean, there are two big options right there. If they could figure out a way to make it work, that would at least land you into the conference championship game, if not in the Super Bowl itself.
Yeah. Are there any other teams that you could see DeAndre Hopkins possibly looking at outside of, KC and Philly?
I mean,
Or teams that would
I'm sure there are some teams like would Cincinnati love to have another weapon on there and help Joey be out? Sure.
on a 1-year deal, it would have
On
to
one
be.
year, that's what I'm saying. So if you could get him in there and say, let's up our chances this year.
Yeah. I mean, between Chase and Higgins and Boyd, and then you add
Oh my
Hopkins in there.
That's dangerous because they are a team that's really, really close. I mean, they're a really good football team.
But how inclined is DeAndre Hopkins to play in cold weather at this point in his career?
Then again,
Could we
depends on what he's
see
looking at.
a move to Miami? Tyreek Hill,
If-
DeAndre Hopkins, Jalen Waddle.
Again? There's another thing there.
That's
But
that's
that's what I'm saying.
insane.
So how do you stack some of these teams and you're looking at it going, okay, this team could be the one. No, this team could be the one. And there's only a handful of those teams out there. If he truly just cares about a championship,
Right.
then your window's small.
Well, see-
It's like these are the lists. My list is this.
That's why I think it's more probable that he plays for an NFC contender.
Yes, and I think that's only a couple of teams.
I mean, if
I
you
think there's 3 teams maybe that you would look at.
so Philly, San Francisco, Dallas.
Yes. Exactly.
Dallas doesn't have salary cap space. So
No,
we
but
can
I'm
throw, we
saying
can throw
if you-
that out
but
the
if you
window.
could- I'm just saying, if you were looking at teams, you say, what are my teams in the NFC? Because I know one of these teams is probably going to be up there anyway.
Right.
Those are 3 teams I'm looking
I mean, because if he goes to San Francisco and it's Debo and Brandon Ayuk and DeAndre Hopkins and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and whatever quarterback they throw out there, I don't think it'll matter
at.
at that point.
But I do think that's going to be his determining factor.
It's the quarterback.
Just the quarterback.
So Philly. DeAndre Hopkins is going to Philly.
I think Philly, if he goes NFC, is the safest bet.
And if you go the NFC route, DeAndre, you have that's an easier path to the Super Bowl than what the AFC is offering.
Now, what I love, CD Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and DeAndre Hopkins on my football
And Michael
team,
Gallup.
And Michael Gallup. Sure, I would love that very much. But
Financially, not going to happen.
But those are the teams you have to look at. If just going to winning a Super Bowl is his thing, there's like 3 teams in the NFC you look at, and it's almost that way on the AFC side. There's maybe more on the AFC, but you got Kansas City's your first option.
Absolutely.
You got Cincinnati.
Absolutely.
If you're talking about cold weather, I mean, Buffalo is the other one.
Because they've got some Stephon Diggs drama going right now.
They do.
Stephon
They
Diggs looks
do.
like he wants out of Buffalo.
That's what it sounds like.
Again, this is typically how these moves kind of work, especially in the world of the NFL, especially amongst wide receivers. They have a tendency to kind of act out irrationally until they kind of get their way and get moved. I mean, but if Stephon Diggs is going to be there, you add DeAndre Hopkins in that mix to go along with Gabriel Davis, you got a pretty solid receiving core. You got 2 good tight ends in Dalton Knox and Dalton Kincaid, or Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. If they could ever get a running back, they would be straight. Because the thing that's hurting Buffalo the most, in my opinion, because they got a good defense. They have one of the premier defenses in the league.
But it's the running. You're not afraid of anything on the back.
No, and you're not. And the thing is, they play in the weather that says, hey, we're playing outside in Buffalo, New York.
It's frigid.
It's frigid. There's snow. Like, you've got to have a running game.
Yes.
You look at those Buffalo Bills teams from the early 90s that went to 4 straight Super Bowls. What did they have? They had Thurman Thomas.
Yes,
and he would slice up opposing defenses. You know, if Buffalo could get that and a DeAndre Hopkins, it's a scary, scary thought. But the problem is they're going to be in a division with Aaron Rodgers and company, who has a pretty good running back in Breece Hall and Michael Carter, that have some okay wide receivers. I don't think any of them outside of Garrett Wilson really scares you. And Garrett Wilson's an undersized guy, but he showed he could ball last year. But then you got Miami, as we've talked about, between Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Stays healthy. Miami's offense.
I think the AFC East might be what the NFC East was last year. Ends up being just the best overall division in football. But you also got to deal with Russell Wilson and company with the Broncos.
And there's another
having
thing.
Sean Payton as their head coach. Can Brandon Staley finally get out of his own way and get the Chargers over the hump? I mean, there's
options.
There's a lot of options in the AFC, but the problem is that leads you into a situation where you have to face stiffer competition if you're DeAndre Hopkins and you want to get to that Super Bowl. But speaking of Super Bowls, the Chiefs finally had their first official Super Bowl championship ring party.
Oh, yeah.
So you remember their first championship they won during they won right before COVID started.
That's right.
So they never got to have that celebration. They did it socially distanced on the field.
It was weird.
Kind of weird.
The whole weird thing.
So they finally got to throw down, have their party. Their rings look incredible. 613 diamonds, 609 round diamonds, and 4 Marquise diamonds. And to go along with 35 rubies and 16.1 carats of gold. They're massive. They're also designed to be worn as pendants. So you can take the top of the ring, the facing of the ring, you can take it off, and then it has a hook in it you can flip up and put it on a chain. Yeah, someone's getting robbed for sure. But they look awesome because the Chiefs, since their colors are red and yellow, having that actual yellow gold in the ring just makes it look tremendous. Everything looks like it belongs. And they were kind of really smart with how they designed it, which, I mean, this happens every year on every ring. But so the team's logo is done with 16 rubies, which represent the number of division titles for the franchise. There's 50 diamonds on the Arrowhead portion of the team's logo, which represents the 50th anniversary of Arrowhead Stadium. 3 Lombardi trophies, each set with a Marquise diamond at the top, representing the team's 3rd Super Bowl championship. A total of 16 baguette diamonds at the base, representing the 16 players who scored a touchdown last season for the Chiefs. A red backdrop was created from 19 rubies and 38 diamonds. The Chiefs scored 38 points in the Super Bowl, which was the 57th Super Bowl. 19 plus 38, there's your 57. They had 54 diamonds along the top, representing the deficit in terms of total points the Chiefs had to overcome in their 2 most recent Super Bowl championship playoff runs, and a removable top of the ring that can turn into a pendant modeled to look like Arrowhead Stadium, and each player's name in gold along with a row of 13 diamonds.
Jeez.
Absolutely stellar design on this ring. One of the nicest Super Bowl rings I've seen.
Well, yeah.
There was some sad news, though.
Yes.
Over the weekend. So 2 days ago, Saturday, Hall of Fame offensive lineman Bob Brown, labeled the most aggressive lineman that ever played by John Madden, he died Friday night at the age of 81. The Pro Football Hall of Fame announced his death on Saturday. Brown was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2004. On the field, he was as fierce an opponent as any defensive lineman or linebacker ever faced, said Hall of Fame President Jim Porter in a statement on Saturday. He used every tactic and technique, and sometimes just brute force, to crush the will of the person across the line from him, and he took great pride in doing so.
Ray Lewis's son passed away from suspected overdose.
Yeah, that was
28 years
really
old?
wild.
I believe.
Yeah, 28. That is true. Of course, he played at his dad's alma mater, Miami, for 2 years before he left to go to Coastal Carolina for a season and finished his career at Virginia Union. There was evidence and witness accounts showed this incident to be a tragic accident, according to police. A person in the home was attempting CPR on Lewis when an officer arrived Wednesday evening. The officer was advised by a second person that Lewis needed the opioid overdose antidote naloxone, which the officer administered using Narcan, according to the police report. The antidote and further life-saving attempts were unsuccessful. Lewis was taken to a hospital and pronounced dead of suspected overdose, pending an official autopsy report. Absolutely tragic. And then, of course, in just the dumbest football news of the week.
Might as well finish it off with this.
Yeah. The Albany Empire, which is an arena football team owned by Antonio Brown, has been kicked out of their arena league. So the National Arena League kicked the Albany Empire out of the league Thursday after team owner Antonio Brown failed to pay either a required fee or a fine that he received after recent public comments. After exhausting, and this is a direct quote that the league released. After exhausting all avenues, the NAL Board of Owners have decided unanimously to terminate the membership agreement of the Albany Empire. The decision was reached after an emergency conference of all the members in good standing, so not Antonio Brown, to discuss the Empire's failure to pay their league-mandated and overdue assessments.
So Antonio Brown doing Antonio Brown things.
Yes. Antonio Brown became the majority owner of this team in April.
So it took him only 2 months to run it into the dirt.
It took him 2 months to get this team kicked out of the league. He was fined $1,000 for conduct detrimental to the league on May 15th. Or he was due to make that payment on May 15th. And so Brown also challenged the April payment. He had to pay in April and in May. The April payment was credited back to him. The NAL said the team accountant informed officials that it didn't seem like Mr. Brown was going to pay the assessment or fine, leading to the emergency conference call. The membership gave the Empire until noon Eastern time on Thursday to make the payment. When they didn't pay, the NAL canceled the team's Saturday home game against the Jacksonville Sharks, and it will adjust the rest of the league's 2023 regular season schedule without the Albany squad.
Which is sad because they're the 2-time champions.
Yeah. Well,
coming into the season, they were champions.
So just think,
season, now the 1-6.
Antonio Brown became a part owner in March, and he took over a 94% stake in the franchise in May. And since then, the team has been through multiple coaches, and both quarterbacks that were on the roster were released after last weekend's loss to the Orlando Predators that dropped Albany to 1-6. And as you said, the Empire had entered the season as 2-time defending champions. Antonio Brown just refuses to get out of his own way.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, there's no more making excuses. Y'all got something excuses for on.
Yeah.
There's just no call for it. It's stupid. He's not paying his players. How do you screw up in this bad in life without intentionally trying to do something? You don't.
Yeah, I mean, there have been all sorts of incidents with Antonio Brown, and I don't know if it's something to do with brain trauma, because most of these incidents all started after Vontaze Burfict knocked the dog piss out of him.
Yep.
In a game, back when he was still with the Steelers.
That's right.
And then after that, he started getting into arguments with Ben Roethlisberger, throwing Roethlisberger on the bus, which prompted a move to the Raiders, which he didn't even get to the regular season with the Raiders before he was cut. The Patriots picked him up, and then he's hit with the sexual assault allegation, so he plays one game for the Patriots, and then he's cut. Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay. He's like, hey, he vouched for Antonio Brown. And for a year and a half, he was working out, and then he threw a temper tantrum on the sideline and stripped down to just his football pants and ran off the field while waving to the crowd. Like it's just one asinine thing after another with Antonio Brown, and he's doing all this to himself.
Yep, that's the thing. Nobody's doing this to him.
No, these are his choices.
Sad, folks. Sad. Look, you got anything else want to tell here?
Man, Spence, do you want to get into the old Drizzler and Big Kahuna? I think we did cover the Drizzler.
I think we got that one. But let's do the Big Kahuna one for sure. I don't know if it's Drizzler is what we just.
Yeah, and Antonio Brown's definitely the Drizzler this week. For sure.
But
no, San Diego State.
graphic. I'm gonna put a sound thing.
Yeah, we've got to get a sound bite for that. But the Big Kahuna, I think, has to be the SEC.
Yes.
I don't think there's a way around it. Their schedule, while brutal for all teams, is an absolute win-win for everyone.
If you're a football fan, this is going to be great.
It's a win for the conference as a whole. It's a win for fans. For SEC fans. It's a win for college football fans. Yeah. All eyes are going to be on all SEC conference games throughout the 2024 season at a minimal, but possibly going into the future, depending on how they handle scheduling going forward.
Absolutely. So there you go. Good job.
Yeah.
You got this.
Big
this one right. Let's see what happens.
I'm interested to see though how USC and UCLA schedules shake out in Big Ten conference play. Can you imagine thinking, hey, man, I'm going to go play for the Trojans or the Bruins. I get the sunny SoCal weather, and then all of a sudden you got road games in November playing Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan or Wisconsin. Yeah.
Brutal winds blow through there.
I didn't sign up for this, man.
What's happening? I wanted beaches and sunshine.
Right.
You put me on a cornfield somewhere. What am I doing here? That doesn't make any sense. Hey, we're football, though.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what their schedule is going to look like going forward.
It's about to be a lot of fun. All right, folks, we appreciate y'all tuning in. Great show today. Once again, we'll shout some love out to our sponsor, Toby Town Media. Hit them up. Dude, you won't be disappointed. Realtors out there, you need some actual great work done. Toby Town Media is the way to go.
Yeah. If you're a realtor or you know realtors, have friends that are realtors, family members that are working in that space, let them know that they can try Toby Town Media for free They just have to order the Pro package at checkout at TobyTownMedia.com, and then use the promo code at checkout, Blitz, BLITZ, all capital letters, and they can get that Pro package for free. That's, high quality photography. That's videos. That's drone footage, as well as immersive virtual tours of the residence. There's everything there from Tobytown Media that will really make your listing stand out. It'll attract more buyers. And also it'll put you in a space that will elevate your status within that real estate world, because now people have a reference point of, hey, this is what this agent can provide for you if you're trying to sell your home.
There's nothing really worse than when you're going and trying to look for a home, especially if you're looking online, which is what everybody does these days.
And it's just
Everybody
one
wants the
exterior
virtual
shot.
One exterior shot. You got a couple of weird interior shots, like, is that a bathroom or a hall? I'm not even sure what I'm looking at right here. I don't know what this is. Get it done by professionals. You can see what's going on. If you're a realtor, you want your listings to pop, so people don't have to wonder. Let them see, hey, this is what I have to offer. Tobytown Media's way to do it, folks. Go check them out. We appreciate it. We will see you back here